Hello, hello, my friends. AmyR here with Prairie Paper and Ink. Welcome back to my face and my card making space and a stack of cards. I started out with some ink smushing and the plan to make like one, maybe two cards, and it turned into 5. Not bad, really. Had a lot of fun. But yeah, ink smushing. I have shown it a million times over on my channel in the bajillion videos I have posted. Still one of my favorite things to do. I used Distress inks this time. The OG, Distress inks were like the first real water reactive inks, and they are unique. They are. Like, you can do ink smushing with any water reactive ink, and I've shown it. I have used many different ink brands over the years. But it's just Distress inks. It's fun. So, did a bunch of ink smushing, and then I die cut a bunch, and then I did some edging of black edging with black soot splatter, all the things. So, like always, links to everything I used will be in the description box below. They are all affiliate links. I need to start mentioning that more. I do have like all the disclaimers, everything, but yeah, they are affiliate links, which means that they are no cost to you if you use my links. If you click on them and then you end up placing an order, I get a little kickback. Again, no cost to you guys. I just get a little kickback from that, and that's what helps keep my channel up and running, helps pay the bills, helps keep this garage heated. All the things, So, links to everything are in the description box below, along with a link to my blog post where I have like pictures of everything, picture links, a little easier to navigate, my social media, all that's linked below as well. That's all I have to say, other than just keep watching, and then I'll show you guys exactly how I made all these cards. To do all my ink smushing, I am working on one of my non-stick craft mats. I talk about this a lot. Surface matters when it comes to specifically like ink smushing. I just did a video recently and I just used my glasswork surface to do some ink smushing. Totally different results. Inks pool on glass. On things like the non-stick craft sheet, they bead up, as you can see when I spray water. Like, you smush the ink, spray a little bit of water, creates all these little like bubbles and beads and texture, which is so fun. And then all you gotta do is press your watercolor paper or cardstock of choice. Paper also matters. Another surface. It does matter. You can use whatever you've got. Experiment. You'll just get different results. Cardstock, like basic cardstock, won't hold up as well, but you can use it. It can get a little iffy. The more water you add to cardstock, it will start to like literally fall apart because it's not meant for water, but you can still use it. Again, experiment. I'm using distress watercolor paper because, again, it was made for this kind of stuff, and it was literally made to work with distress products, so it's a win-win. But again, I have done this on many different types of watercolor paper. I have even done it on heavyweight cardstock, just because why not? So with lighter colors, because the first 2 shades I use, this first one is Scattered Straw. Light colors, depending on the look you're going for, I wanted, a decent amount of saturation, quite a bit of color. So I did many, many layers with this Scattered Straw to kind of get it to where I wanted it. But I still wanted that Scattered Straw color. Now, if you just want yellow and you want it to be like bright and vibrant and very little effort, use something like mustard seed, like a more intense color. But lighter colors, that's just the name of the game, because they're not as heavily dyed, because they're supposed to be light, if that makes sense. So in the distress line, there's many colors like this. Like, this one is Salvaged Patina. Oh, one of my faves. But also a very light color. Like, I edited out a bit of this just because it's redundant. I'm doing the same thing that I've shown in many videos. Smush my ink pad, spray water, press in cardstock. The other thing to always remember with ink smushing, if you want that textured look that I'm going for here, you need to dry in between the layers. Wet on dry layers, wet on wet blends. And so I've just got my heat tool. You can also use your embossing tool if that's all you've got. Either one works great. It with stuff like this, it literally doesn't matter. But yeah, drying, I get it mostly dry. I don't even dry it fully. I just get it mostly dry because that's where I get all that fun texture. And then we get into these more intense colors. That one before this was Salty Ocean. And that's where you start seeing the difference between like lighter, paler colors and then the more intense colors. Whew, the more intense colors make more of a mess, and it's fun. If it really bugs you to get ink on your hands, you can wear gloves if it, really bugs you. I just give my hands a good scrub with hand soap and a loofah when I'm done if they're, really bad, and it comes right off. Hand sanitizer also helps to get ink off your hands, but just a gentle scrub. Just a gentle scrub. Same with like having a shower and washing your hair. The same concept. Because people always mention that, and I was like, it's the same thing as rubbing your hands with hand soap and a loofah, Depends. If I'm going to be washing my hair that day afterwards, great. If not, loofah and hand soap. Anyway, I did all these backgrounds. Very simple. Just one color. That's also a great thing when you're experimenting and you've not really done much ink smushing. Keeping to one color per panel is great, because then you get things like this, and you don't have to worry about colors getting muddy or, weird results of colors mixing, that sort of a thing. And then you've got all these panels to play with. You can use them as backgrounds, or in my case, I'm going to die cut all of these. Like I said in the intro, I was only going to make like 1 or 2 cards, but then I was like, all these dies. These are the Pretty Pink Posh Party Balloons die set. And I was like, all of them fit onto these panels, so I'm going to use them all. And that's what I did. As you can see by the scraps sitting here, I used every single panel. I die cut so many balloons. It just went over the top. I had fun. I don't care. I had fun. So after I die cut them all, I decided to take my black soot distress ink and my little blending sponge, and I ran it along all the edges of all these die cuts. Now, to some, this may be very tedious. To me, these are just the things that I do that I just kind of zone out. It's the same idea when I'm making multiples of anything. I do everything in batches. So I did all that ink smushing in one, batch, like Tim Holtz says, compartmental making. You do all that at once, or however, and then you set them aside. And then I did all my die cutting in one step. And then I did all of this edging of the dies in one step. So this is where I can kind of, and especially things like this, like it's mindless, so it's like I can have a show on or an audiobook, or I'm just like bopping around to music, that sort of thing, and just like let my brain shut off for a while. So the other thing I did, I wasn't originally planning on using, there's these wafer dies in this party balloon set that pop out the little stars and the circles. They're cute. I wasn't originally going to use them at all because I was like, I don't have time for like inlay to fiddle, I'm already going overboard. But instead, all I did was I die cut just scraps of lighter weight white cardstock, and I adhered them as I showed, and then I edged those with the black ink as well. And it worked. I was like, oh, these are cute. These are fun. If I was only going to do 1 or 2 cards, I would have inlaid the other pieces because I did save them. Like I had them in my little triangle trays, but decided not to. With just the white backgrounds, they were cute. And then these little stars, I edged all those pieces. Once I got in a roll, it was fine. I used that for the main die cutting. This is just that Tonic die tape. I've talked about this in a couple of recent videos. I'm liking this stuff. So I use that die tape to hold the little pieces for the stars, and same thing. I just grabbed the pieces at random and adhered them to die cuts of lighter weight white cardstock. So then I also have all these little stars with the stripes and the texture, and can I keep saying this a million times over? I had fun doing this. So the other thing that I got a little bit ridiculous, but I've shown this in many videos. I have a thing when it comes to balloons. I was using black, I think this is like Hemtee cord. I don't have a link for this, but like black string will work as well. I stuck it to the back of each of the balloons with just a bit of washi tape, added a bit of craft tacky glue, and then I used my reverse tweezers just to hold that in place while the glue dried. And I did this to almost all the balloons. I had already figured out how many I wanted on the card fronts, so all of those balloons. So a lot, but again, I just do this all in one kind of sitting, So I'm zoned out doing my thing, add a little, adhere the string with the washi tape, add a little glue, pinch it with the reverse tweezers, set aside. This is also why I have many pairs of reverse tweezers, is for ridiculous things like this, And I've also talked about this with reverse tweezers. Having multiples means less chance of them walking off, because when I only had one pair, I could never find them. Now that I have like many, many pairs, They never go anywhere. They're always where I need them. So then I can do silly things like the balloon strings on like 40 plus die cut balloons, because that's what I do. Anyway, my backgrounds, Simon's Smooth White Cardstock. I ran it through my die cut machine with the Pierce Stars plate wafer die from Pretty Pink Posh as well. I love those backgrounds because they're subtle. And then I trimmed them down a bit, which I showed with my guillotine trimmers. They're slightly smaller than the A2 card bases, and I edged those with the black soot Distress ink. And then I wasn't filming when I was like arranging my balloons because I just wasn't even thinking. But then I was like, ooh, I like this arrangement. So I was holding the arrangement in place, made sure to press record on my camera. And then I used press and seal to hold that arrangement in place. Just a random piece of it. And this is the same piece I used like over and over and over again. So I pressed the press and seal onto that arrangement, flipped it over as you can see, and then put Simon's Big Mama foam tape on the back of this arrangement. So one, this is going to adhere everything. Plus it'll give it just a bit of dimension. There's already going to be dimension because it's die cuts and string and all the things. So I peel off the back of the Big Mama foam tape, and then I can use the press and seal, as you can see, to get everything arranged where I want it. Press this down, and then I can peel that press and seal off of this arrangement. And then I just repeat this over and over again. And I actually use the first arrangement as a guide, and I'll show that in a second. I lay the other balloons kind of over it, and then I press the press and seal onto it, flip it over, do the same thing. And I just repeat this process over and over again. So while a lot of this kind of seems like, I get comments about that sometimes. It's like, these are very involved, very like, I don't have the time for this, etc. I do it all in steps. I do not do all of this in one sitting. When I'm doing something a little more involved or multiple cards, etc., I do each batch in steps. So I did like all my ink smooshing in one step, and then I went off and did like other things that I needed to do for work. I did all my die cutting in one step, and then I go off and do other things. Because even for me that does this as a job, I usually don't have the time like to do start to finish multiple cards, very involved. I do it in batches. So I'm now at this batch where I was arranging my balloons, and then I would fold over all the strings. I decided to fold them over. I had tried, but I didn't bother even filming it, to like tie a bow around the balloon strings and then have them all loose. Yeah, no, that was getting too involved. It's way easier. Folded them over the back of this panel, taped those, the ends of the strings in place with washi tape. We're good to go. So I got all my balloons arranged on all my card fronts. Then of course we're going to add some splatter. This, I don't know, for me, this was like really finished it off. It just gave it that extra something, in my opinion. For those that don't like splatter, you can always skip it. That's the joy of this, that, this is just a video and you're not forced to do things you don't enjoy doing. So I like splatter, and I like black splatter especially. It just, I don't know, I like it. So this is Black Soot Distress Paint, my favorite black splatter. I do get asked, like, what do I recommend? And honestly, I've not yet found anything I like as much as just Black Soot Distress Paint. Always remember, though, to wash out your brush, clean things off. This stuff dries permanent, and it is pigmented. Like, Black Soot, more than all the other distress paints, it likes to get everywhere. So I splattered all my backgrounds. Just use my splat box, my little fan brush, Black Soot Distress Paint. And then after I'd splatter each one, I set them aside to let them dry. And then again, immediately cleaned off my fan brush, etc. So while the splatter was drying, I'm going to work on the sentiments. And for that, I'm using the little birthday train stamp set that came out. There's other sets that coordinate with this, like with the little train and everything. And I just wanted the sentiments though, because I love the font, the like script font. So I'm using just a piece of black cardstock, and I use my anti-static powder tool on it. That just keeps the embossing powder from sticking to anything but the stamp sentiment. And then I'm stamping that Hooray sentiment. I'm using the Altenew Cloud White pigment ink. I think I talked about this in a recent live. I bought this recently. I've heard many good things about it, so I couldn't resist. And it's great. So I've only used it a couple times, but so far it's great. It's a great little pigment ink. The thing is, when you're heat embossing sentiments specifically with white ink, or if it's a line art image, on like black cardstock, darker cardstock, etc. Stamping it with white pigment ink versus just stamping with clear does help. It gives you a better impression in case you might have missed a spot here and there with the embossing powder. The white pigment ink just makes it look a little better. You know, I've shown this in other videos. It's not something I do very often, but when I remember to do it, I'm like, oh yeah, this is a good little trick. And then I forget about it the next time. But I remembered this time. So I white heat embossed those sentiments. And then I took just scraps of white cardstock to stamp the little companion sentiment. And for that, I used the Altenew Obsidian pigment ink. I did let these dry because me and pigment inks, sometimes I swear I just either don't have the patience or I'm just clumsy and I smear them. So I let those dry. And then the little companion sentiments I die cut with one of the Pretty Pink Posh sentiment strip wafer dies. And then the Hooray sentiment I die cut with the coordinating wafer die. And then all my card bases are going to be top folding white note cards, A2 size, so 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And I put those in my MISTI and I lined up sentiments from the Pretty Pink Posh Sentiment Strips birthday stamp set. And I used a couple of them and I'd lined them up and same, just one after another, just got all the insides stamped with those two little sentiments and that same obsidian ink. So I got all the insides done, technically. I was just going to have the sentiments, but I had leftover birthday balloons. I had figured out all my clusters for the fronts. And then I behind the scenes, basically, I was like, ooh, should I do more cards? I was thinking about it. And then I was like, wait a minute. You know what? Let's put these on the inside. Why not? I had piles of them. So I had enough to do 3 on the inside of every card. Because, I like being extra like that. So I adhered them. And then the little bits of the balloons that I hung kind of over the edges, I just flipped the card base over, trimmed those off with scissors, and the same thing. Just did all the insides of the cards at once. And then, of course, the splatter and everything is dry on my card fronts. So I put Big Mama foam tape on the backs of all of these card panels. This will pop it up a little bit. Again, gives it a little bit of dimension. And it will also make the card fronts adhere nicely because I had like quite a few pieces of that string. So did that on the backs of the cards, and then on the card fronts to adhere the sentiments, I just used little bits of foam squares. So I used little black foam squares on the back of the Hooray sentiment, and then little bits of white foam squares on the It's Your Day sentiment, little sentiment strip, which I kind of tucked in under the little curve of the Y. And then this also ensures that these are adhered nicely over all those pieces of string. So got those adhered into place, peeled off the backing, popped this onto the card base, did that with all the cards. And then final embellishment, which I've been using a lot lately, is the sparkling clear confetti. These are what I call neutral, neutral confetti, neutral bling. They're not sparkly, they're not crazy, but they give it a little extra something. And for me, because you guys didn't see like the thought process in my head, but when I originally was starting with these cards, they weren't going to look like this. Like they were going to be more almost like flowery in a sense, if that makes sense. But it just evolved into these with the black edging and the black splatter. And I was really happy with it because I was like, ooh, these cards will be fun, like for teenagers, for just anything non-floral, if you know what I mean. I love me some florals. I love my florals, big florals, always. But that's always something I need more of, is non-floral, non-cutesy, And I think these really fit the bill. So I'm glad I made multiples of them because now I've got some extras to have on hand. So like I mentioned in the intro, I will have links to all the things in the description box below the video for anyone who is interested. Thank you all so very much for taking the time to watch my videos, for thumbs upping, commenting, subscribe if you haven't. I'd love to have you. And I will see you all very soon in the next video. Bye.